Hello, 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 Falcon family. This is Principal Brown again, coming back at you with another video that we are here to continuously celebrate Asian American Pacific Islander Heritage Month. And today we have the honor and privilege of interviewing one of our very own, one of our teachers here, Mr. Ryan Lenz. Ryan, thank you so much for agreeing to do this interview. Ryan has been with us for the past 2 years. We actually stole him from elementary school here in the district. I'm so happy that we did, because ever since he came aboard, he also is our head men's soccer coach. And he's done a phenomenal job with the program there, also a phenomenal job here in the building. Everybody loves you, Ryan, and you've made it, just a great transition from elementary school here to high school. So thanks for agreeing to do the interview. And, I got a few questions for you. You're going to be on the hot seat for a little bit, but hopefully you agree to it. So I think you'll be all right.
No paperwork was signed, so I'm not entirely sure that we have proof. Yeah, let's roll.
So going into that, tell me a little bit about, we know that you're a math teacher here in the building. Talk a little bit about just your background, where you went to school, and how you kind of got into teaching in your current position.
Okay, so yeah, I'm a math teacher here. I teach the conceptual algebra, anywhere from conceptual algebra to geometry, anything, and maybe potentially algebra 2, anything beyond that. Like, you got heads that are, much wiser with that than I am, considering I made that jump from elementary school. So my background, I was adopted actually from South Korea. I was about 3 months old. So as far as any recollection or memories from that, there really aren't any. I do have some siblings that were adopted as well. So I have an older brother. He was adopted from South Korea, and a younger sister as well. None of us are biologically related. And then we do have another sister, Christina, who was adopted domestically from Virginia. So my parents obviously weren't able to have children, in the goodness of their heart, looked into adoption. So that's kind of why I'm here. I lived in Baltimore County until I was in 3rd grade. So imagine going from Baltimore County, I was in Perry Hall, to Carroll County, which isn't that long of a drive, but like, talk about a culture shock as far as going from the demographics in a Baltimore County to the demographics in Carroll County, especially in the the Finksburg, Westminster area. We'll talk about that later. But overall, good upbringing. Middle class family. My father, he hands-on kind of guy. He worked for this Lockheed Martin. It's now called Middle River Aircraft Systems, basically building airplanes, which is pretty cool. Yeah. My mom worked there as well, and then when they adopted us, she kind of took the back seat, took care of us at home. But then when we were old enough, she kind of went back into the school system as a one-on-one at West Middle. And it was actually pretty cool, because when I got my first job with CCPS for 5th grade at Eldersburg Elementary, she actually came with me as a one-on-one. So I actually had the opportunity to work with my mother, which was pretty cool. Wow. Yeah, that's pretty much my upbringing as far as, the transition from, Korea, obviously, to Baltimore County to Carroll County. And we can talk about the details, with the other questions that you have in mind. Did you want to go into my high school experience at all, or?
Well, I mean, talk to me a little bit about, how you got interested in teaching. I see the degree behind you, diploma, McDaniel College. So how'd you get interested in, growing up here, everything else with all the differences between Baltimore County and everything else, to, hey, look, I want to teach, and not only do I want to teach, I want to teach in Carroll County. How'd you get to that point?
Yeah, so I feel like a lot of people have this story. That diploma is from McDaniel from my graduate degree. The Towson one that I have is stored away somewhere, because in my opinion, that one doesn't even necessarily matter. That's the go-to. Nice. I went to Towson. My undergrad was actually healthcare management with a minor in business. And that's one of those things where, you're a young kid and you're trying to figure out what interests you and what you like. And I was the classic case of, let's change my major X amount of times. My aunt, she's pretty high up in Hopkins. She's like, get into healthcare. And at that point, I was a junior. I'm like, you know what? I got to decide on something. So let's just do it. So I graduated from there, and I got a job with Johns Hopkins Medicine, just working at Cube. It was a Cube job on the phone, on the laptop, running people's insurance, talking to physicians, et cetera, et cetera. And, it was no coincidence. That's where I kind of got my first migraine. Like, it was just like, I was miserable, absolutely miserable. So that's when it kind of like came to my attention that like, this is not for me. Like, I need to be moving and grooving. I need interaction with people that's not over a telephone. They actually offered me a quote unquote promotion. And that was, believe it or not, my way of getting out of there. That was like, hey man, like, you don't want to do this. You need to get out. Mm-hmm. So just by chance, I don't know if anyone that's going to watch this knows Frank Fury. He's this great dude at Robert Moton. He works at Robert Moton. He's like an intervention specialist there. And he actually was a JV soccer coach at Westminster, my alma mater at the time. And I ran into him at Johansson's and we got to talking because he was with someone that I knew. And he was like, yeah, well, like, we have a one-on-one position open. I also could use an assistant for soccer, like, if you're interested in that. And it's kind of like all the pieces started to make sense for once. They always kind of fell into place, but these actually made sense. Mm. So I took the job. I quit my Hopkins job. I took this job as a one-on-one. And just that experience alone of having someone with special needs, and not only someone with special needs, but you get to spend an entire day with that person and build connections and build that bond and be there for them. That was like, I was getting paid for something that I was getting rewarded for, on a different level. Mm-hmm. So that's when I kind of decided, okay, well, this is pretty cool. That's just like one person. Imagine if I had a whole classroom of people. So I was already coaching. I obviously love coaching. I have an athletic background and everything. But I actually ended up being an IEA for pre-K there. The job opened up. I interviewed. They gave it to me. So I was working with 4 and 5-year-olds. Like, the amount of germs and boogers and just stuff that you have to deal with there. But again, I enjoyed it. Mm-hmm. I enjoyed waking up, going to work. Work did not feel like work for me. So that's when I decided, like, McDaniel had a great program. I heard about it through the grapevine. I got my foot in the door there. They accepted me for the the BEST program. And you go from a big school like Towson University, which is, it's a big school, but like for the state, it's a big school. And then you go to an intimate school like McDaniel, where they actually care about you and they actually know your name. That kind of just solidified, again, just little things that solidified my decision was like the right decision. Right. So I have mentors from there that I'm going to have for a lifetime. Jan Ober, shout out Jan Ober. She's like another grandmother to me, not making fun of her age, but she's like another grandmother to me.
As long as she's not like 30, that would be bad.
No, she's borderline grandma. So I think she's going to, and she would expect nothing less from me if she sees this as well. Right. So that's kind of my transition from my office job to teaching. And just, again, little things that matter to, like, as a human being, like having a school that cares about you and having good mentors, that kind of solidified, like, this is the right thing that I want to do. And, like, again, those bonds that you build with either players or students, they last you a lifetime. So that's pretty much it as far as that transition went.
So talk to me a little bit about, and, this isn't one of the questions that I sent you ahead of time, but I know how much like sports mean to you, competition, those type of things. And that's one thing that's kind of, a staple in your life. Talk to me a little bit about what that kind of means to you, not just being the soccer coach here, but just the game of soccer itself and what that kind of means to you. So
I think any sport, whether it's soccer or like a self sport like tennis, like the lessons that you learn with like grit and perseverance and failure, I've learned in my life, like my greatest failures or my greatest learning experiences, whether it's, in a classroom, with relationships or with sports. I think sports is really good because you're not going to win everything. Like, especially in soccer, you're thinking about an 80-minute soccer game. You're not going to win every tackle. You're going to miss some shots. And it's like, that's what's going to determine, when pieces aren't going in your favor, what kind of character you have when things are going against you. So I think, and I've told other people this, with coaches in this county or just overall that double down as teachers and teachers that double down as coaches and vice versa, they lend to each other so well with how you're building your classroom or how you're building your team because of those life lessons. Like I know, and I'm sure you've seen like the kids last year, not this year so much because of the virtual, but like I took from elementary school, I would pass out a grit award, right? So a kid, he doesn't do well on a quiz. Ace is the next quiz. Well, his name's getting on the board. He's getting a piece of candy. He's getting a medal. And it's just little things like that, that's kind of sports related, like getting a medal for like working hard and getting the benefit of that.
Right.
So when you played sports too, I know, like, I think that's the biggest takeaway is just like owning your failures and having grace in those failures. And what do I have to do now to not allow that to happen again?
Right. Awesome, man. Yeah, sports, I tell people that all the time. Like, I wouldn't be the person I am without sports, because the things that I've learned more about myself through being pushed, athletically than like almost anything else. Like it's a mental thing. And so when you know how far you can push yourself, then you can maximize your full potential as an individual. And
Yeah.
some people don't know where their full potential lies because they never push themselves to the max. And like you said, I mean, I know you that with the boys, like, they're running stairs, whatever they're doing, they don't think they can do one more, and they're able to push through it. And you're like, man, I did something I didn't even think I could do. I found something else about myself. And that changes who you are as a human being forever. Like, it's not one thing that sticks with you, it sticks with you forever. So it's interesting you talked about that. Going back to teaching in your profession, what is it that is the most rewarding part of that? And also, what is the most difficult part of like doing what you do every day?
Okay, that's a really good question, especially with the environment that we're in right now. I think easy question would be the difficult part. As far as engaging students in lessons that are an online environment, and especially like you have kids in class, but you're still essentially teaching in an online format. You know what I mean? So I know me personally, especially with like the preparation that McDaniel sent me with, and then teaching in an elementary school kind of style, I can't have my small groups. You know what I mean? I can do a whole group lesson, and then for the most part, it's like I can help you guys individually. And I've like, trust me, I've tried the breakout rooms.
Yeah.
They're not the same, man.
Right.
Like it's not the same. You can't see their faces. Like you can, like, what can I do to help them or make them turn on a camera besides ask them nicely?
Right.
There's no penalty for that.
Right.
So that interaction that you have with kids, especially in a small group setting, because usually that small group setting are the kids that need it. So I think the most difficult part right now, especially, is just dealing with engagement, because, I mean, I'm sure you've seen the numbers. There are kids that just aren't engaged at all, and you can contact parents, and you can do this and that and the other, but you got to understand the parents are human beings too, and they're trying to motivate them as well, and they can only do so much.
Right.
So that's definitely, I would say, the most difficult part, besides probably just lesson plannings, and then me making a jump from 5th grade math to high school math, which, man, I had to shake off some rust for that. Like I had to review it. Like, it was funny. As far as the most rewarding, if you talk small scale, when you just see a student have one of those aha moments, right? And they're struggling, and you just do the little scaffolding or help them out a little bit, and they're like, oh, like it was that easy the entire time. Like that is just so rewarding as a teacher, because like you are that median between the content and the kid. And when you see a kid finally get that, like that's just a special moment for sure. Right. I think as a math teacher, especially at a high school level, there are some kids that are told they're bad at math in like 2nd grade. And there you go. And now let me ask you, let's flip it. Did that not follow you for like a lot of your academic career? Maybe not the skill wise, but just the mentality, because somebody at a young age told you were bad at it, and then you just had a negative taste in your mouth about math for a lot of your academic career. You know what I mean?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, you've done elementary school. I mean, you see how that impact has, and it happens very early. I would say probably for me, it happened like 2nd grade. I think 1st grade, it's like, hey, everything's all fun and dandy, but time you kind of get to 2nd grade, and definitely by the time you get to the 4th grade, I mean, now the pressure comes in a little bit. Like you gotta, know your, numeric tables and, your times tables and all of that. And like, if you don't know it, it's like, you get tossed to the side or you're looked at funny, and you're like, at that age, not having the correct answer to something. I say with my oldest child, like, it's not something a kid wants to do. Like, you could know a kid wants to give you the right answer. They want to give you the right answer. And like, if they don't know, you can see in their demeanor, like, man, like I failed. You know what I mean? I'm supposed to have the right answer. You say, no, that's not right. You're like,
Yeah.
And it affects you because you're like, man, I'm trying, and it's not there. But then somebody else has the right answer, and then they get the accolades or the claps or the sticker or whatever it is that they get.
Yeah.
And it follows you, you know what I mean, all the way through your academic career, where you get to be in middle school and now you got anxiety built in.
Yes.
So now it's like, please don't call on me because I may know the right answer, but I don't want to be wrong. You know what I mean? I've been wrong so many times. Like, so it just builds and builds and builds. And I'll tell you, all my anxiety came from probably like math class. Like, came from like, I was cool, but like in math class, like, dude, I'm the guy in the back. Like, don't ask me any questions. I'm hoping you don't call on me. Somebody please answer the question. So yeah, that's where I was at with it.
And that's what I'm seeing now. It's cool that I get that experience from fifth grade, and even from, by the time I get fifth graders, I have kids that say like, I've always been mad at math, and then they don't have that whole growth mindset, and they're just shutting down at the first glimpse of struggle. And then you get to high school. It's funny you said that because I literally have students in high school, and I'm telling, like, who cares? You're not even going to see these people in 10 years anyways. But you aren't. But yeah, there's a girl this week that said like she didn't want to raise her hand because like certain students weren't there because she cared too much about what they thought. Mm-hmm. And then one day they weren't there and her hand was up like every question. I'm like how did you, like, what is, like, this stuff, what's going on? And she said it was a confidence thing, that she didn't feel comfortable. And again, that had built probably from like second grade. So I like that I'm in a position that we're, dealing with high school, that I have an opportunity to kind of switch that mentality and try to make math fun again and be relatable and, make those connections. And it's just cool to see, like, you have kids that I do a survey at the end and you'll have, some kids say like, I never really enjoyed math until now. Wow. And that is not by any means me tooting my own horn or patting me on the back. I'm just saying that's very rewarding as a teacher that you had someone who is now 15, 16, 17 years old, and it's been that long since they actually enjoyed a content area. And now flip the switch for, college and so forth.
It changes the whole game. Because now, you go to college with an extra boost of confidence that you really didn't have. And that matters when, in college, you're going to go take a placement exam or whatever. You have more confidence when you do that. And it translates to some of those standardized tests. I mean, it just does. You have more confidence in yourself. When you take a test, you're going to feel better. You're going to attack the questions with a little bit more confidence, and you'll probably do better. So all of that stuff matters. And I'm happy it's mentality. I'm happy you mentioned that. So switching gears, I mean, this is one of the questions as it is Asian American Pacific Islander Heritage Month. From your perspective, being an Asian American, coming here to this country, being adopted and everything that comes along with that, like, have you had to deal with any type of race-related issues, as you transition all the way through, like, talking about when you were in school to college to professional, like, have you had to deal with any of that?
Yeah, so as I said before, coming from the demographics that you have in a place like Baltimore County, and then just moving in the summer and then starting the school year in third grade, I may as well have been like a golden unicorn or Easter bunny here. Like everyone looked at me like, what is he? Like, so I was lucky enough that I was decent enough at sports that I was able to make friends that way. So I know at a young age, especially with guys, like there's an immediate respect factor if you're just decent at sports. Right. So I luckily had that going for me, and I made friends through my soccer teams and my club lacrosse team, stuff like that. But that being said, to answer your question, like, yes, there were instances where there was ignorance and statements made, and maybe not even like out of cruelty, but like they're not used to it. Right. So like if I went to Westminster, so the school that we do not name in this building. I went to that other school down the street that's inferior to this school. But and I counted on my one hand how many students there of Asian descent were in that building when I was there. My brother was one, I was another one, and then I think these other two brothers, and like that's it. So I think, you come to this county And it's not talking bad about it or anything, but it was just new. It was different. And there were kids, especially like a third grade, level and that age, they didn't see this before. Whether maybe it's on TV, but they haven't seen this before. So like I'll get questions about stuff that maybe like are a little bit personal, that could be offensive, but at that age, obviously you don't know that, just because they weren't used to it.
Right.
So I'm not going to get into specifics, but yes, there were instances where, growing up from third grade up until even adulthood now, where you're going to have statements made or someone says something maybe they weren't thinking correctly. But I think, that goes hand in hand with just anything. Like there are good people. There are too many people in this world that you're going to have people that their upbringing is telling them something that is right or something that is normal. And someone is raised in a completely different way. And, their definition of right and wrong is just completely different than yours. And what I've learned is like, especially, dealing with the racism and just dealing with like different people throughout my life, just to have empathy and just to, yes, they said that, but let's understand the story behind why they said that. Yeah. Because yes, I know evil exists and there are bad people, of course, but some of the instances that I dealt with racism, I don't really think that maybe it was malicious in a sense. I think maybe it was out of, curiosity and just like unknowing. Right. So yeah, as a professional standpoint, like I don't really have any besides like, I know there was an article that recently went out in the Carroll County Times, like we need more diverse teachers. And I understand like if any workplace, my application probably got points on it and, but whatever. We don't have any diverse teachers here for the most part. You know what I mean? Like just even like imagine being a guy teacher in elementary school. There aren't any guy teachers in elementary school. Right. Like, no. Unless you're a PE teacher. And then be a guy Asian teacher was just like, again, like who is this guy? Right. But again, that's where I try to like use the time, especially in this classroom. Since I've been in high school to now, especially in Winters Mill, the diversity has skyrocketed. Yeah. My first class that I had here, my first day on the job, I looked around and like, this is different. And I make it a point, I'm like, guys, like you need to take a second to look around and appreciate the diversity that's in front of you, because you're not going to get there everywhere else, especially in Carroll County. So I try to use my platform as an Asian teacher and a minority in this county and community to like empower those other minorities in the community and make sure like, listen, like this guy's a soccer coach, man. Like I could be a soccer coach, I could be a teacher, I can make math cool. So I do try to use my past experience now to like help guide me with what I'm doing in my position and platform that I have now, I guess, if that makes sense. No, it makes total sense. And I always tell people it's about enlightenment. It's not about hatred. So it's hard to meet ignorance with hate, because at the end of the day, that's not really going to accomplish anything. But if you meet ignorance with enlightenment, now we could start making some changes and making some differences. I tell people the story all the time. I used to, in college, I used to go, because it was like big at the time. This is when like pro wrestling was like a thing, right? You had The Rock and everything. Like it was a deal. It was a deal. It was like a show. So it was like Monday Night Football and like, Raw was on at the same time. And guys, this was like before you had, all this super technology. Like dudes that actually had like two separate like televisions going on at the same time or whatever, with like different stuff going on. So we would go over there and we would watch it. As I walk in the door, for the first time I go over there, the guys, they were white guys, and like they had a huge Confederate flag like just draped over top of like their couch. Right. And like me, I'm gonna attack that right off the jump. Like, dude, what's up with the flag? That's the real, like, what's up with the flag? And they like, oh, it's about heritage, not hatred. I'm like, no, I don't want to hear all that. But it was funny. It didn't stop me from, socially interacting with them. And we had a lot of in-depth conversations. Right. Not only about the flag, but just in general. And it just wasn't met with hatred. Like, I'm not sitting in here unless you take that flag. Like, it wasn't met like that. And I think we have to understand that, because even in America, like this is still a very young country and it's still forming. I think we always believe that like, oh, America, like it's like America's still, compared to other countries, right? America's in their very early stages of still forming.
And I don't think it's as great as it's going to be. We're still going through growing, issues. And those things will be solidified over time, but it's only going to be solidified if we meet those things with enlightenment. So it's just interesting that you said it. And you're more American. That's the other thing. Like, people may not know by looking at you, but like you just said very early on, what do you know about your other country? Right. The American culture.
Yep.
Like, you may go to, and I don't know if you got the opportunity to go, where you're originally from or not, to Korea, but like if you went there, like you may feel like, yeah, people look like me, but like, dude, once I open my mouth, they're gonna be like,
wait a second. Right. I've been told, because I actually talked about teaching over there, like younger years. Like I was thinking about like, hey, it'd be cool to go back there, and like I've been warned by some other people that you might not be met with open arms because I'm over there and because I look like them, but I'm so ignorant to their culture that they're almost like, I don't want to say ashamed, but like, it's like, well, like you're not really one of us. And I've joked about, like, I've been Americanized, man, fully, like hamburgers, everything. But that's the thing, like I'm at the age now, and this is a whole different conversation, but I'm at the age now where I'm mature enough. Like I've now spoken to my parents now.
Okay.
Who are, of course, my mom and my dad, my mother and my father, forever. But like I'm at the point, I did ancestry.com, I'm now looking at that. So I think that's like a thing for other conversations, for like if anyone's watching this is adopted and like from Asia, there are different ways to go through that adoption, and some people handle that a little bit differently than others, and maybe a little bit more harshly. But like there's a maturity level that you reach where like, I can't go my whole life without that biological search. Yeah. So no, it's cool too. They brought up the Confederate flag. Not cool, I guess, but like I'm actually now dating a girl she's mixed. Her father's African American, and he's the Man Val soccer coach. Actually, shouts to John Lindsay. What's up, dude? Dude, he's my guy. Like we work out. So it's cool though, because I'll be hanging out with him more than her sometimes at the house. But like he's opening my eyes to stuff that I did not necessarily know about the African American culture, and like what they had to deal with, and like how some history books might not be written as accurately as we all think they are. And then he hears my version, like what I'm dealing with the racism. Like now, this is the first, and I didn't mean to mention this. I am now 32 years old. This is the first time on a national and a global scale where I've heard anything that built momentum towards like stopping Asian hate at 32 years old, right? Because again, a whole nother conversation, I guess. But like, it's just kind of thrown on the rug, you know? And this is the first time, like now, like I was watching the Wizards game, the Capitals game the other night, and like NBC is like, stop Asian hate stuff. This is the first time I've actually heard anything get momentum. Again, that's a whole other conversation, but it's just, you asked the race question. That's just interesting that now at 32 years old, this is the first time I'm actually seeing anything. So. Yeah,
that's awesome, man. So I guess you talked about, your parents and everything else. Like, is there somebody that sticks out for you? And I know you had a lot of mentors and people over the course. Just by talking with you, you respect a lot of people. That's one of the things I really admire about you, is like you really pay homage to people that have helped you in your life. Is there anybody that sticks out to you as like a hero to you in your life that you like, man, this person, like, I wouldn't be Ryan without this person?
Yeah, so this is like any cliche interview that you see after games and everything, but my mother and my father, obviously.
Yeah.
Like, my mother's been going through some health issues and whatnot, and like my father just worked his butt off. He's retired now, but like growing up, I didn't understand how much he worked to provide for my games and travel, and like, so I won't get into detail. Like my mother and my father, obviously heroes for me. They've always been there for me. Love them to death. Right. Another one I'm just gonna name drop, and I name drop him every single time I have someone ask me, is Brandon Johnson. He's very much affiliated with FCA. He's a Westminster graduate. He's 2 years above me. He coached at Westminster lacrosse. He kind of was there for me and helped guided me towards like my faith and my faith journey and what that means to me and my relationship with God and how it relates to sports. There was always religion for me, and I was confirmed Catholic, and it just never made nothing made sense to me. Like it was strict. I couldn't relate to it. And then I went through an issue with my roommate actually committed suicide. He committed suicide. Like, I was going through stuff, like I was not religious anymore. And then Brandon comes and he helped me out with the JV soccer at Westminster when I coached there. And we did all these talks and everything. He's helped me, find, I guess, a purpose. Right. So like being faith-based now and like not incorporating faith into lessons and not incorporating religion into what I do with my kids on the field, obviously. But people got to understand, like, there are so many life lessons in the Bible and with religion that can relate to sports in the classroom, but you're not necessarily talking about religion. Brandon's been that person for me that's helped show me that. And he's like structured my life when, like, I asked my mother, I was a wild card growing up, man. I was a handful. And he's kind of helped hone me in a little bit. So I would say my mother, my father, Brandon Johnson, and then obviously just being in this building, like, you have helped me tremendously with the transition from a super scary transition, right? 5th grade to high school.
Yeah.
You and all the admin team just helping me feel welcome. Anything that I need, just let me know. That's what you want as a teacher from administration, right? So I've heard stories of bad admin before, and you guys have been just everything that you want from a teacher as far as the support system goes. So obviously, I'll take some time. So thank you for that, and all the admin team for doing that for me for my transition here. Yeah,
man. Well, I mean, like I said, likewise, I think that, like I said, with trying to become, more diverse as a staff, it is all about trying to be inclusive, and you can't retain, minority candidates if you don't have an inclusive environment. That's why you see the things that you kind of see here, the flags and stuff like that. That's not just for the students, but it's also for our staff. And I know Olivia Bowersox even mentioned, I mean, we're still working on this, Olivia. So, you hear this, no, I'm still working on it. She's like, where's my flag? And so before, there were no flags here. So it's funny now that, like, staff are now like, where's my flag? And I'm like, wow, that's a good problem to have, because it just wouldn't have been several years ago. It wouldn't have been that way. And now we're getting the staff where it's becoming more and more diverse to match our student population. So I'm, excited about that. And like I said, you have, I'll talk a little bit about that a little bit later, but you have a wealth of potential. It's all about how you kind of tap into it. But I guess, the other aspect of that, Asian heritage conversation is that, do you think there's more work that really needs to be done? I say that because even being African American, there's things about my own history that it's like a lifelong thing, right? So anybody that tells you, like, they probably know a lot, they don't know everything, because there's so much that's happened, 400 or 500 years. It's like, dude, it's a lot of stuff that's gone on that has been swept under the rug, that's tried to been hidden. The same thing with Asian Americans in America. There's a lot of things that have happened, traumas and whatnot, that have been hidden under the rug that you actually learn about. In the last interview, I learned something new just by talking to, Wendy P. And she was just sharing that, I guess, after, one of the wars, that they had like these Asian, hate camps or concentration camps here in the United States. But after Pearl Harbor, it was like they were taking American citizens, people that were born here, and like they were still putting them in these camps just because they were Asian descent. And so that's the type of stuff that, like, people don't know, unless you actually do your history and do your research. So you feel like there's been progress?
So I know for me, I went through a Carroll County environment and culture and public school system. So like I'm fairly, and it's ironic because I'm Asian, but I don't know a whole lot, right? Like what you just told me, never heard it. Had no idea. I've heard about the railroad stuff going on and everything. Never heard about that. Right. So obviously, like, yes, there's, I think, steps for, like, African Americans, Asians, everywhere, like just everywhere, because there's so much stuff that we don't know. Like I said, like, I'm 32 years old. I've never even heard anyone say stop Asian hate or anything similar to that until now. So what's been happening all those previous years, right? I've dealt with my racism in this county, or it's just in general, right? Other people have dealt with theirs, and nothing's really caught momentum. So, like, to answer your question, like, yes, I think it has to be baby steps, because people don't like change. I just don't think that if I'm comparing like this to like something as powerful as like the Black Lives Matters movement, like that's so huge, right? That's so powerful. And you have athletes getting on board, right? As far as the Asian population goes, we're not really well represented, right? We don't have those professional athletes to make it like cool or for people to look up to and like have a voice in it. You can throw in a few actors and all that kind of stuff, but like Yao Ming, has he said like there's no real figure, especially like in sports or on the celebrity level, that have used their platform to make this known and to start a movement or to start like, embedding it into the politics that we're dealing with and what have you. So yes, there are steps, but I think again, and it's so much easier said than done, it just starts with the word empathy again. Like, let's have a conversation. That's why like the book talks that you guys are having with our staff, those go a long way. Just having conversations like you did with your friends on the couch without the flag. I think it starts with little conversations that start to catch wind. Because, I mean, if you asked me 10 years ago if there was going to be a Black Lives Matter rally on Main Street, I would have laughed at you.
Right.
And then this year there was one. So it just has to start with little conversations. But, I mean, I could have just answered your question one word. Like, do you think we have progressed over the years? No. A little bit. A little bit. But I think this is going to go an ongoing battle forever. There's just too many people in the world, man. Like, there's just too many people with their own opinion. So you just kind of have to, surround yourself with people with love, I guess.
Yeah. And I mean, it all starts with small things, though. And that's part of this whole interview. It's like I talk to most people, and yourself may have been included in this, right? And it's no shame to anybody, because I stop people Asian descent. Sometimes I ask them, like, did you know like what this month? They people like, I don't know, they have no idea that this was even a month. So it has to first start with like enlightenment within their own community to know, like, okay, this is a month. Like, maybe we need to plan this or do that, or like make it into a celebration or a big deal, because it should be a big deal, right? Not only, we get big on these months, but it shouldn't just be a month. It should be things that we're celebrating all year long. And but it's really about the individual people, and you have to know, and it also takes courage, to start movements, to have and facilitate some of these conversations. And I say this to the kids all the time. It's hard to do that from the background, right? We all just want to fit in. Like, that's human nature. Everybody wants to fit in and just go about their lives without anybody bothering them or having some of these conversations. But when you are in America, you're kind of robbed of that because we're all different. And so it's going to come up because everybody, I don't care who you're talking about, even somebody that may be Caucasian, you're talking about ancestry DNA, like let them do ancestry DNA and they'll probably find out some stuff, right? They'd be like, what? Like, yeah, so you have different cultures inside you that you may not even know. So we're all into that. So it's really about that. But I just wanted to ask you that. It makes perfect sense. Before I let you off the hot seat, just have one more question for you, and we kind of touched on this a little bit, but finding out about this month, what does it mean to you? Like, what would you want to see done in the future to kind of celebrate your own heritage and just bring more light to this month?
I think what you said, hit the nail on the head as far as celebrate the month, right? Make it known. First of all, make it known, because you approach, and again, this is bad, and it's going to, again, almost undermine me even doing this interview, which is fine. But you came up to me and you said, hey, it's Asian American Pacific Islander Month. Would you like to have a conversation? And I was like, it's what? Right?
right.
Like, I've always known about it, but it's one of those things you see it on the calendar and like, okay.
Right.
And just move on with your life. So it would be cool to see, and obviously Wendy's here. Could be cool to see something being done not just within this school or within the community, but like obviously on a national and global scale, where like this is a big deal. As far as like I haven't even really given thought of what could necessarily be done, but as far as just making it known, I told the kids in mod 2, I said, hey, I'm talking to Mr. Brown about this, that, and the other. And I was like, you guys should tune in because it's very cool to have a conversation. Again, me being Asian, you being African American, like you have two minority human beings having a conversation about being minority human beings that these kids might not, otherwise take the time to see because it wasn't out there. So I think doing stuff like this is obviously a big help. I think just me and like people like Wendy being like proud of who we are and making that known, like that's one of the very first things when I talk about me in class. I'm like, I was adopted, man. Look right there. There's a picture. My parents are white. Do I look like them? No. So like just making that known and then making it relatable as opposed to just making it known and let's keep on carrying on with our lives.
Yeah.
So yeah, I do try to use my platform just like as a teacher and especially as a coach too. Like I am who I am. Like let's embrace that and like I can bring up obviously a lot of different mindsets and opinions on topics, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So, but you basically said like let's just make it aware. Let's celebrate it basically.
Yeah, and like I said, there's nothing to be ashamed of because like I said, I think that it's something that we're trying to do here at Winters Mill High School. Hopefully, it catches on at other schools. Hopefully, it catches on throughout the county and so forth. And everybody that sees this video, hopefully, they know. And now, from this point forward, we're able to make the celebration a little bit more robust and make others that are within this community feel special. And like I said, it's all about being more inclusive, man. So if we could do that, then again, we'll be a better county for it and definitely a better school for it. So, Brian, I want to thank you. I know you probably got students getting ready knock down your door or whatever, but I really honestly appreciate you taking the time out. And more importantly, man, like I said, I think the world of you as a teacher. I think you've made a tremendous contribution to the school and the community and really made a difference with the students, just as you were mentioning before, even students that don't come up to you, because we have a lot of students that are of Asian descent that may not have approached you or had a conversation with you, but seeing your face in the building every day makes them feel special and makes them feel like they belong. So I want to appreciate you for doing that, man. Seriously.
And thank you again for taking the time to reach out to me to do this. I really obviously appreciate that too. I think that's going to go a long way in everything that we just talked about. So thanks again.
All right, sir. Thanks.
All right. Have a good day. See ya.